ChatGPT Plus is free for college students through May. Here's the thing. You've got a lot to do between now and then. Studying for finals, writing papers, trying to keep your life on track, and ChatGPT can help with all of it. It can quiz you for your econ exam, make a study guide from your French notes, plan out your meals and study breaks. It can get really specific on how you like to learn. It can even help you come up with ways to stop procrastinating. So from now until summer break, take advantage of all the ways ChatGPT can make your life easier. Restrictions apply.
The Red Apple Media Podcast Network presents This is Protecting America. Now, here's Emmy-winning journalist Rita Cosby.
Welcome to another edition of Protecting America. I'm Rita Cosby. The Biden-Harris administration's withdrawal from Afghanistan was disastrous and disgraceful. On the 3-year anniversary of the 13 U.S. service members who were killed at Abbey Gate near Kabul Airport, former President Trump went to Arlington National Cemetery, and that created quite a big controversy from Democrats. Well, to separate now fact from fiction and politics is Lieutenant Colonel Darin Gaub. He is a 28-year Army veteran. He's also the executive director and co-founder of Restore Liberty. Darin, it is really great to have you here on the podcast.
Rita, it's always a pleasure to join you. Thank you so much for having me on.
What is your reaction to President Trump going to Arlington that important day?
Yeah, what a day to be in Arlington for him and for those families. I mean, that's exactly what you would expect for a person who was, frankly, acting more presidential than the guy sitting in the office right now. And Trump went as a citizen. He didn't go as a candidate. He didn't go as a former president. He didn't go as a politician. This is just what he has done, not only for this event, for other events. So I think it's great that he went there. And even most importantly was the fact that he went there because the families invited him. And that's more important than anything. Frankly, those 13 families, however they're organized and all the people involved there, their opinions matter more than any of ours.
What did you say when you heard Kamala Harris, for example, saying it's a political stunt?
Well, it seems like Kamala Harris and Joe Biden accuse everybody of doing the things that they are very used to doing themselves. And so there's pictures of Biden at Arlington Cemetery doing things that would be the same thing. Harris doing the same thing. What's the big difference here, though? The difference is that neither one of those two has ever called the parents of the fallen from Abbey Gate. Trump did. I may have my disagreements with Trump here and there on things, but you give credit where it's due. And in this case, this is a big deal that he talked to them and that the families trust him and lean on him, and they will not have anything to do with Harris or Biden. And when you hear the family testimonies, what a powerful testimony from all of them, and that shows the big and stark difference between these two. So everything is political right now. It doesn't matter whether Trump ties his shoes in the wrong location or whatever. Everybody's going to try to make political hay out of these things, but this was simply a solemn, respectful ceremony that, now, me, being a former guy who served in Arlington Cemetery, would say was done exactly right.
Wow. You hit it on the head that the family members, because the family members came out swinging in support of President Trump, saying, how disgraceful of you, Kamala Harris, to say this, when just like you said, they haven't heard from, Kamala Harris in any shape or form. And they said, we invited him. Don't you think, as you suggest, that's really the most important opinion that matters of anybody?
It does. And I can sit here and talk about all day long about what kind of ceremony it was, from the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier to Arlington Cemetery in general, from my time there and in all the work that I've done in that location. But in the end, I'm just a person who can bring expertise about how Arlington functions. That is what matters, though, is those families. They're the ones who suffered the loss. They're the ones who were in this, experienced all of this in depth, and they can tell you better than anybody who called them, who they trust and who they think should be in charge. And the rest of America, regardless of which side you fall in the argument, it doesn't matter, because he wasn't there for the rest of us. He was there for those families.
You know, Darin, you've had, as you brought up, some really powerful experience there in Arlington. 600 plus funerals conducted in Arlington. Can you kind of describe what those services are like? I've been to some, and they're so powerful.
Oh, absolutely. And there's a couple different kinds. There's the horse-drawn carriage with an 8-man team, and that's an incredibly powerful ceremony with lots of different pieces and parts that have to be done exactly right. And that's a team I was never on personally, but I know what they went through, and they're phenomenally professional. The 6-man teams that I was on, and when I'm talking about these teams, is that they're the ones that actually carry the casket to the site and fold the flag and present to the family. But there's also firing parties that do 21 gun salutes and things like that. So the key that I think everybody should know is there's an immense amount of training that goes into every single team that executes these funerals in Arlington Cemetery, because they're expected to be perfect every time. That is the only standard that we ever held. We even had competitions to make sure that teams were looked at and, competed amongst themselves for who could do the best possible job. And you're looking at maybe an inch difference in the finger placement on something could determine a winner and a loser. So we took this extremely seriously, because it's the last military funeral honors, last rites in this regard for the veterans that are getting buried in Arlington Cemetery, and they deserve the absolute best of every single person there, regardless of what kind of job they had. And even for me, a young 18, 19, 20-year-old there, doing those ceremonies, you really don't even realize how much of an honor it is until sometimes years later too, which is why I took a job after my retirement doing funerals in Montana for veterans with a program that did that, and brought that expertise to it, because I love the ability to make sure that I had a role in seeking perfection in giving a person the military honors that they deserved. And that there is no other standard than perfect. If you miss it, well, you keep aiming for it no matter what.
Choosing a bottled Starbucks Frappuccino drink that's all flavor and just 100 calories? Easy. Choosing between creamy vanilla, double chocolate, and sea salt caramel flavors? A little harder. Try the delicious new Starbucks Frappuccino light drinks. Look for them wherever you buy groceries. Start with Starbucks coffee.
Last week was our first playoff game, and my plaque psoriasis was so itchy under all my gear. Sometimes just thinking about scratching could take me out of the moment. And then my doctor told me I could get clearer skin with a pill called Otezla.
Otezla apremilast is a prescription medicine used to treat adult patients with plaque psoriasis for whom phototherapy or systemic therapy is appropriate. Otezla can help you get clearer skin after just 4 months.
Okay, ready for the next game. Talking to my doctor about a pill was a total game changer.
Don't use Otezla if you're allergic to it. Get medical help right away if you have trouble breathing or swallowing, swelling of the face, lips, tongue, throat, or arms. Severe diarrhea, nausea or vomiting, depression, suicidal thoughts, or weight loss can happen. Tell your doctor if any of these occur and if you have a history of depression or suicidal thoughts. Live in the moment. Ask your doctor about Otezla. Call 1-844-4-OTEZLA or visit Otezla.com for prescribing info about cost, and more.
That's beautiful. And by the way, I know that you did, 2,000, you supervised veterans' funerals across Montana in your retirement job. So thank you for your incredible service. Like you said, there's no really greater honor. And it is important. You want to get it right because, boy, this moment for families, how much training goes into it? How much time goes into some of these services? And also, how special did you feel when it sort of hit you what you were doing, the significance of what you're doing, even at a young age when you were doing it?
When it hits you really step back and just say, wow. And I guess it's the more you're involved in the military, you really start understanding what all of it means, and you see the customs and traditions and the things that we're supposed to adhere to. And it would gradually hit me over time, even during my military service, especially as I lost people who were under my command or who were family of mine. And you know what kind of honor it was, because now you're on the other end of it, and you want the people who are doing the funerals for the people you know to have the same level of expectation of that perfection for these ceremonies. And then to add to that, the funerals job that I had after retirement, I made it a habit to read the separation paperwork for these different veterans. And what goes from being a name on a piece of paper to being something more significant is when you see in their list of accolades and awards and various narratives, this guy or gal, or well, in most of the cases, it's a guy jumped into Normandy or landed on the beaches of Normandy or served in Guadalcanal. And you can go through many examples of what these people did. And you're just sitting there going, the least I can do is give them the best I possibly can in their last military honors. And that's so critical, and it just continues to grow over time to realize exactly what you were involved in and put yourself in the shoes of the people who are watching you do the ceremony or watching, make sure I get this right, that you're able to take yourself from being the person who's executing the ceremony and expects perfection of yourself and your team to being the one who observes it. And you expect the same thing of them. There's no other way to say that than it's just an incredible honor to know that you're part of it and to know that somehow you're going to be a memory for that family to carry with them for the rest of their lives.
Absolutely, and give them some comfort in their final, most difficult moments. You talked about, obviously, the sacred moment, getting back to Afghanistan. A lot of the family members came out and said, on the Trump issue, how dare you, Kamala Harris? You were not there in Dover when my son came back. And then some of the others referred to the fact that President Biden was looking at his watch when their son or daughter, when their casket was coming back to Dover. Your reaction to just how painful that is, to not feel like the commander-in-chief, or in this case, the vice president, giving you the attention you do deserve.
There's no other way to put it than to say that it's just disgusting that there wasn't even the slightest bit of effort to show up there and do what is right. And I think we can understand to a point, if a conflict has casualties with immense numbers, that just becomes nearly impossible to do it every single time. But in this case, it's different. And it's not a big thing to ask for. And I will tell you from personal experience working with a family who Obama showed up and was very similar in his attitude and his ways and means in Dover, a young couple that my wife and I mentored through a newly married program up in Fort Drum, New York. His name is Isaac Jackson. He ended up getting killed in Afghanistan in the Arghandab Valley near Kandahar back in 2008. And the family got a hold of me because of what I was doing and told me how disrespectful it was for someone like Obama and what he did. And I won't get into all the details there, but this is just the continuation of that mentality. Families know when presidents, vice presidents, secretaries of defense, and these are looking at you as if you're an inconvenience to their schedule, rather than parents, wives, husbands, whatever, of the fallen who just sacrificed their life for a country. The least you can do is give them an hour. And that's, again, credit where credit's due. Trump did far more than an hour with these families. Yeah, and they had nothing but accolades for him in the hours that he gave them behind the scenes, not just on camera at the Tomb of the Unknown, where I've also served. So it's very critical that ultimately the chain of command and those people who are most responsible for sending soldiers into areas where their lives are at risk show up and do the right thing. And of course, in this case, Biden, Harris, and all of that crew did not.
And to this day, Darin, they maintain what they did was correct. Kamala Harris, after everything, said she was the last person in the room with Joe Biden. And, they essentially, the administration said it was a success. Was the withdrawal of Afghanistan a success? It looks like it was a disaster. Not just, of course, losing the most precious of all, 13 U.S. service members, but there were a lot of mistakes made. I mean, they left Bagram. They left no boots on the ground. What do you think of the withdrawal now? It's 3 years later.
Well, the first thing is I'm ashamed of the fact that there's zero accountability with anybody. Nobody got fired. Nobody got removed. Nobody was held to account for any of that. And it's easy to say that from the perspective of someone who would just be, if I was only looking at it from the outside and saying, clearly this is a horrible mistake and done terribly. Unfortunately, my background includes the fact that I wrote the evacuation plan for how to leave Afghanistan quickly. In the military, we call it a non-combatant evacuation operation, or NEO. The first and most important step of that was you keep Bagram and execute out of there. So you failed at step one. Well, reinforcing that failure, of course, they went to the location, Kabul Airport, which I've been in and out of there hundreds of times. I can tell you it's the absolute worst location to do a mission like this. And I posted on my Twitter account and showed a picture of Bagram versus Kabul, just from the air. Bagram's out in the middle of nowhere, surrounded by nothing, easy to secure, only a military installation. That's why it was a strategic airfield. Much more capable runway, everything. Kabul, much less capable runway, mixed-use military and civilian airport, surrounded by numerous buildings and 4 million people in Kabul who clearly could get on the base very, very easily. It created the worst security environment possible for a mission like that. So their failure started from the beginning, and it only exponentially got worse over time through the way decisions were made. But when you come back to, who was held accountable, nobody. In fact, the 18th Airborne Corps commander who oversaw the 82nd Airborne Division on location in Kabul, I knew both those commanders, 82nd Airborne and 18th Airborne Corps. I knew both of them. Well, one of them is now the Central Command commander overseeing some of the planning and coordination for the defense of Israel. So he got promoted. That's what Americans are sick of. Nobody is held accountable, and I don't think anybody ever will.
Why do you believe they were so naive, like you just said? I've been over to Afghanistan. I went over there years ago when I was covering the troops. And when I went there, just like you said, Bagram's in the middle of no man's land. And obviously, it's also closer to China. There's a lot of strategic reasons where it is. Why the mistake then? And also, let's talk about the fact that they left billions of dollars worth of equipment behind, too.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned China, because I will tell you, when I was there in 2004, my first of 4 tours, China was already there, claiming mining and mineral rights. So the fact that China moved in within hours of us vacating and surrendering Bagram was not a surprise to me. They've been there for quite a number of years. I have a hard time calling it a mistake. I think it's just either sheer incompetence or planned failure. And again, because of what happened, it's shameful to see that nobody was held accountable as a result of that. The generals, I don't know exactly what they said behind closed doors, but if none of them said that leaving Bagram was a huge mistake, then they failed terribly. They didn't know what was going on over there and what was going to happen very quickly once we left. This is why I decided to get involved in doing things like your show and other shows on different outlets, was because I got tired of a bunch of generals coming onto media and defending the positions that they put themselves in and not telling the God's honest truth that many of us who sacrificed our careers are willing to do. And so we'll just keep doing it. Do we think anybody will ever be held accountable? Not really. No, it's shameful at this point. Some of them will be retired. Is there a possibility of that? Well, there could be. Let's just say Trump gets into office and we shake up the Department of Defense. One thing about general officers, they can be recalled and held accountable. Anybody who's a government appointee can be recalled and held accountable. These are the things that we need to do to show the American people that we don't accept failure, and especially when that failure leads to the death of people for no reason.
Absolutely. And President Trump did say, Darin, that on day one, he would ask for those involved in the decisions to have their resignation or else, recalling it, literally saying they will be held accountable. Maybe you're right. Maybe that is what sadly it takes, even though this administration. But the problem is some generals testified, most of them, it looks like all testified, that they said, no, we should keep troops there. We should keep Bagram. And President Biden overrode it. So it would mean Biden firing himself. And obviously he's leaving soon anyway. But it's personal accountability. And yet there doesn't seem to be any whatsoever on so many spheres. Before I let you go, the equipment, the fact that the equipment was left behind so much, and it was heartbreaking, Darin, not that long ago, there they were, and they were parading U.S. military and NATO equipment at their parade, showcasing it to the world like, haha, look what we have.
Yeah, it's unfortunately, of course, a series of failures that we could take an hour or more to keep going over all of that. But what I can tell you from personal experience with the planning and efforts that I did up in the north part of the country specifically, we had the ability to get all that equipment out of the country. And we had it there for years. And it was a way to get it out to the north, take it by rail from there to the west, and have it removed from Afghanistan. It was not that expensive. It was certainly capable of being done. But instead, we're made a mockery on the world stage. And as a result of that mockery and the weakness that we displayed, what else happened? Well, Russia took advantage in Ukraine. The Middle East is on fire. China's getting militarized. Our borders wide open, letting in all kinds of different people who shouldn't be here. And we could go on. And all of that is the message of Kabul. And they heard it loud and clear.
Yeah, how much do you believe clearly that our adversaries did hear that message loud and clear? Because I agree. I think they said, wow, okay, U.S. is willing to pull out, leave, allies behind, leave equipment behind, do it so haphazardly. How much do you believe that has just been such a disaster in terms of so many of these other hotspots that we're seeing around the world, that they sense weakness?
It is resonating globally. It's heard and being acted on. And even most recently, we've seen the people in Izmir, Turkey, taking 2 American sailors and kidnapping them. Thank God they've been recovered. But there's much more to that story that will come out. But people around the world know better than to listen to this administration, because this administration's not going to do anything. And I'll tell you, if Trump gets into the White House in January, 2 things. The period between the election and inauguration is going to be a period of high risk for this nation because of all of those people. They're going to take advantage of that 2 months, especially those inside of our own borders. And if he gets into office safely in January, that is when the American people need to put their foot on the pedal. We cannot slow down, because that big government that's out there that's seeking to control all of us is not going to let go of power. And we have to take it from them. Non-violently, of course, but we can.
Well, and just as you said, there are a lot of, we have to focus on what's good for America and what's important. And they know that President Trump will come in and clean up house. And you're right, a lot of them don't want to be cleaned up. They want to stay put where they are. Well, Darin, thank you so much. Everybody, be sure to subscribe and share to this podcast. Lieutenant Colonel Darin Gaub, really great to have you here. What a powerful discussion. And most importantly, also, thank you for your incredible service and everything you've done through the years to honor our great veterans. Bravo, bravo, bravo. I've known you for some time, Darin, and I just have even more respect for you, learning what you have done and giving them such a dignified final moments. That is so powerful, and especially their families, too. Thank you.
And thank you, Rita, for all your kind words.
And everybody, I'll be back soon with another great edition of Protecting America. And of course, you can catch me every weeknight, 10 p.m. to midnight on the legendary WABC Radio. This is Rita Cosby, and thanks for all you do to protect America.